Bonjour, Father Tony. How are you?
Bonjour, Al.
Another French saint.
Another French saint. Comment allez-vous? Très bien.
Oui.
Oui, oui. So last month we talked about one French saint, St. Joan of Arc,
Right.
and this month St. John Vianney, whose
Right.
feast day is August 4th.
Correct.
And we have a parish in Brookfield for the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, St. John Vianney. I had the blessing and the privilege of serving that community for a little over 6 years, and now it is pastored, shepherded by Father Ed Cornath. So, John Vianney is known as the patron of parish priests.
Right.
Tell us about how he became a saint.
Well, John Vianney was born just a few years before the beginning of the French Revolution. That started in 1789, so he was born in 1786. Very troubled time for the church because for centuries, bishops, priests, the clergy were exempt from taxes. And when the revolution hit, and that was one of the sticking points of the revolution, there was a wave of anti-clericalism. And so it was very anti-church. A lot of people were very ignorant of their faith during the life of John Vianney. And he always felt called to be a priest.
Yeah.
He had a hindrance because he wasn't...
He wasn't the brightest bulb.
Yeah, he wasn't the brightest bulb in the tree, unfortunately, but he was very determined to succeed. He felt called to be a priest and to minister to people who were clearly ignorant of their faith. Once he became a priest, he became very well known especially for the sacrament of confession. In fact, so popular as a confessor that people would come from miles around and would wait sometimes hours just to have their confession heard by him. That was something that he was very graced with. It was said that he could even read their hearts and their minds before they would say the words.
And at the height of his popularity, some 20,000 pilgrims would go to Ars.
Right.
And he was known then as the Curé des Ars,
Right.
The cure of Ars. And
Right.
people sought out that wisdom from him.
So, Father Tony, what can you tell us about the characteristics of Jean Vianney, the personality?
This was a man on a mission.
Yeah.
And he had a vision. And he had a vision that he was going to be a priest in this turbulent time in the church's history in France. And nothing was going to get in his way, not even his own struggles with his academic. He also was a man, the legend is that when he arrived in Ars, France, is that he got lost. And he said to two shepherd boys, "Show me the way to Ars, and I will show you the way to heaven."
Wow.
And so he was able to be that instrument of that grace, particularly in the sacrament of reconciliation. He must have been tireless in that. I can't imagine 16 hours
Right.
a day.
A day, 10, 12, 16-hour days just in the confessional. Amazing.
So he was tireless.
Right.
So Al, how is St. John Vianney depicted? What symbols, objects are affiliated with him?
Well, the two that come to mind the most are, as you said, he's the patron saint of parish priests. So he's dressed as a priest with the stole. Yeah. And typically, not always, but typically the stole he's portrayed with is purple to show penance, to show his connection to the sacrament of reconciliation. Another thing that's really interesting about how he's portrayed is most saints are portrayed with their hands folded in prayer maybe. He has one hand closed and one around it. And it's right at the height of his heart. And it said that it was supposed to represent his great care and concern, almost coddling of the heart of the penitent, that he was so compassionate about that sacrament, so took it so seriously that he really wanted to keep it sacred. So I think it's really an interesting way of portraying him, the deep love and connection to that sacrament.
That literally, when he heard others' confessions, that he was holding their heart
Right.
with that gentleness and that compassion. Maybe that's why he was so popular.
Yeah, it could be. So, Father Tony, how can St. John Vianney guide us today?
I would say two ways that he can guide us, particularly amongst, students. Have a vision. And get that vision of who you are called to be, and don't quit.
Right.
Don't quit. Don't give up. The second lesson really is about our prayer life. We always have personal prayer and communal prayer. And he likens that prayer life to straws of hay. And individually, if you light those straws of hay separately, they're little tiny sparks that don't do much. But if you gather all that straw together and you ignite it, it forms a pillar of light. It ignites the church and ignites the flame of love. And so that's the power of communal prayer. And so it stresses the importance of being a part of a faith community,
Right.
gathering as a community, and igniting the flame of God's love in a world of darkness that needs His light.
Father Tony, this has been great. Thanks for talking about St. John Vianney.
Good to be with you too, Al. I think I'm going to go to confession. You know, it's a
What are you
good
doing right
reminder.
after this taping? Maybe we can.
Yeah, maybe we can. I'll hear your confession.
I'll hear your confession. I just won't give you absolution. Thanks for the time. And remember, we don't need saints to reach God. God uses saints to reach us.